This is the technical training for the 2024 Homeownership Development NOFA. I'm Jessica McKinnon, your contact for all things NOFA. Now, just a quick bit of housekeeping. This meeting will be recorded and posted to our website. Please stay on mute during the presentation. There will be a lot of opportunities to pause for questions. So in that case, please go ahead and enter any questions into the chat or raise your virtual hand. Today's agenda is going to be a little bit more flexible. I am definitely going to cover the detailed scoring criteria, which will be the largest part of today's training, I think. I'll walk through the application and show you how to access and navigate the Procorum Work Center. However, a lot of this presentation will really just be going through documents together, so I'm happy to look into other documents or items if there's anything at all that you find pressing or that you need help with. So to start with, I'd like to launch a poll to kind of understand what you're hoping to get out of this training session or what's most important for you to learn. If you were hoping to learn something else from this training session, you can feel free to type that into the chat as well. So let's see. Susie, can you access the poll?
Just a moment. Yes, I can.
Okay. When I click into it, it's telling me that my polling session is inactive.
Okay. Can you see that?
And I cannot see the results. So as it starts filtering in, if there's a button you can click to share them or something, I'd appreciate that, Susie.
Sure. Still got a few more answers coming in. But I will end it now and share the results.
Do those go into the chat?
Y'all can't see that on the screen?
I can't see it on the screen. Maybe the participants can see it, but since I'm a weird co-host, I can't.
Elizabeth, can you? Okay, yes, they can see it.
Okay. Is there any chance you can send me like a screen grab of that, Susie?
Yes, I will.
And then I can pull it up.
I'm gonna load it in the chat so everyone will have that later, and I'm gonna stop sharing it. Can you see that in there, Jessica?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Sure.
Sorry about that being all complicated.
No worries.
Okay, so it looks like the application workbook and the scoring criteria are going to be the most important, but the application workbook especially, it's going to be the biggest focus. All right, great. Thank you, everyone. Sorry about the technical complications. So I will go ahead and open up the scoring criteria first. That's where I'll get started from. I'm going to try this. Can you see the scoring criteria or is it still on the presentation?
Still on presentation.
Okay, let me change this and we'll go.
There it is.
Okay, good. All right. So to talk through this, this first page here is really like a summary document of how everything will be scored. This is not the version that you'll see online. This is a version specifically for this training. These blue headers here, like development capacity and development experience, those are the different categories that you'll be individually scored on. So you'll need to meet minimum scores on each of these categories rather than a minimum overall score. Below that, There are different criteria we're evaluating and what each criteria is worth. So these here. And then to the right, you can see the minimum required scoring for general applicants, the minimum required scoring for RESC applicants, and then the total possible points here. Now, I covered RESC, so RESCE, in the general information session last week. If you weren't able to attend that, that stands for Rural, Emerging, Small, and Committed to Equity. Organizations that meet the definitions of one of these categories, which are included in the NOFA, can apply for the LIFT set aside, LIFT supplemental, and qualify for these lower scoring criteria here. Now in this document, which again, it's not the one posted online, I've highlighted a few things I wanted to point out to you today. The first, the 12 here, that's a typo in the document that you can find online. So if you saw that this said 10, we're obviously not requiring general applicants to have every point possible. It was supposed to be 12. A couple other typos is that this 3 here in community-centered design, and let's see, that said 4 on the document, and then this ground lease here says experience in the document that you have. That was an old version that kind of slipped through the cracks, unfortunately. So all of these changes are really minor, just typos. They don't really change anything. So I'll go ahead and update that this week. So you can expect a new document with only those typos changed. So no substantial edits. I do want to point out that the gap mitigation narrative and the guarantee, I'll talk about those soon, but I wanted to point out specifically that their points are not included in this total points possible section. That's because these are points that you can earn back, not additional points to earn. Finally, I wanted to note the scores on the project details section. You'll see that the total possible points is very high, but the requirements are still like comparatively pretty low. The section is sort of presented like a menu of things that can earn you points. So we do not expect you to come anywhere close to the 31. So don't worry if your qualifications kind of feel low on that scale of things. In fact, this one's actually a bit of a pilot on the score. So we're really excited to see where your projects come in on this scale. Excuse me. All right, so moving on to the detailed scoring criteria, I wanted to talk about the way that the table is formatted first. So again, you can see these dark blue headings that correlate to the different scoring categories. Then in the left column here, you can see the different criteria. So on the left, you see reasonableness of pipeline and organization capacity. And if you scroll up, these are going to match to all of the criteria on this list here. The second column is going to be a brief description of those criteria and kind of what we're looking for. Then on the right, we have essentially the rubric for how each of those criteria will be scored. You'll see 2 different scoring methods here. The first will be whole numbers, like in reasonableness of pipeline. This is like your basic rubric where you can score up to 2 points, but we also define what the lower scores would look like as well. The other type you'll see at the bottom here on staff capacity with the plus sign in front of it. These are like pass-fail scores where if you meet the criteria, you'll get the point, and if you don't, you won't get the point. So starting from the top, reasonableness of pipeline is going to look to make sure that the projects you're working on are reasonably dispersed and not at risk of bottlenecks, delays, issues, etc. This is going to be your standard rubric with full points going to a healthy pipeline and no points going to pipelines that will ultimately have concerns with. You'll notice in the 1 point section that we try to account for some special scenarios here. For instance, organizations that qualify for RESC and maybe don't have a lot going on in their development portfolio. These were our attempts at foreseeing some special circumstances that could make the scoring criteria inequitable to some organizations that we'd still like to serve. The next criterion is organization capacity, which will look at your development history and your current pipeline to see if you've ever handled a workload this size, or if the workload is reasonable growth or otherwise indicative of issues. You'll receive maximum points for having a development history that supports your pipeline, or again, no points if we have any major concerns. You'll see another special situation in the 2-point category for emerging developers specifically. Staff capacity, you'll see the first kind of pass-fail scoring. We'll use this category to make sure your staff aren't overloaded with work. We'll want to make sure your staff have no more than 3 ongoing projects in their portfolio, that they have the qualifications to manage the projects they're given, and that they're not overburdened with other roles. For example, we don't want to see your executive director also managing 3 projects, but it's probably okay if they're just managing 1. Financial stability and capacity will just be us looking at your financial statements. We'll want the last 2 years of your statements. Essentially, each statement will be worth 2 points. We'll have 4 kind of general scoring items, and you can earn 1/2 point per year of the submitted documents. So I mentioned the gap mitigation narrative earlier. It is optional and only for earning back points. I want you to think of it like your opportunity to identify where we might have concerns and tell us why we shouldn't actually be concerned about it. So for example, say that your assigned project manager has 5 projects, you're going to lose a point for that, but maybe you just got a capacity building grant that you're going to use to hire another project manager. This space would be your opportunity to explain that and earn back that point. For the development criteria category, the narrative is worth 2 points. You can only earn back 1 point per criteria that you've lost points. So in the example I gave you before, you lost a point for having too many projects on your project manager. Say that project manager was also your executive director, which would lose you 2 points in the staff capacity section. Even though technically hiring a new staff member might resolve both of those lost points, it would still only recover 1 point. If you wanted the second point, you'd need to identify another issue in one of the other scoring criteria, like financial capacity. Also, you can't use the mitigation narrative to go above the maximum points for the category. So if you already got all 4 points in the financial stability criteria, you could write a whole essay about the cool changes that you're making to improve financials, but we still wouldn't give you any points for that. The guarantee section here is optional. We don't expect most of you to have one. It is simply an option if you can't make the scoring work for you. We'd be willing to give you additional points if you can bring a third-party financial guarantee for the value of the lift loan. If you can't meet the minimum criteria with both the gap mitigation narrative and the guarantee, then you're simply not going to be eligible for this program. And I will go ahead and pause here to see if there's any questions about the development capacity section. Yes, Jackie.
Thanks. This is new and interesting. For the guarantee option, what will we have to state, or in terms of like additional proof of a guarantee that probably won't close in like 6 to 9 months? So there's no actual proof. What are you looking for?
I guess that's a good question. Do guarantors offer letters of commitment like
They can offer a
typical
letter of
loans?
commitment, but it's just a letter of commitment. It'll be like, yeah, we are interested in committing to this if we need to. It's not going to be legal, like binding.
Okay, so then I would say in that case, we would take the letter of commitment for the scoring criteria, but then we would need the actual commitment and contract to come through before closing
If
to
we need
actually
it.
allow it.
If we needed it.
Yes, if you needed it. Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any other questions on this section? All right. Okay, Then I'll go ahead and move on to development experience. So to summarize this section, we were looking to give organizations a lot of options to bring in experience from different places. We know there's a lot of new developers or small developers looking to expand who might have issues bringing in experience just on their own. So our hope with how this section is structured is that if you've done everything right, brought in staff or consultants or partners with experience, you should be able to get through this section. So starting with organization experience, we made this one worth a little fewer points because the organization isn't the most important part of the development. You'll be able to get full points if your organization has at least 3 similar projects, and then no points if you haven't ever developed anything before, or we otherwise have some kind of major concern. The middle points have another few kind of more objective scenarios here just to help guide our scorers. Staff experience will be worth 5 points. The application, which I'll show you later, has a list of roles that we want to see filled with experienced staff. You'll get 1 point for each role filled with at least 5 years experience, or half a point if the role has at least 3 years experience. You can include 2 staff members per role to meet those requirements, and in some cases, 1 staff member can count for up to 2 roles. That's more detailed in the application. There are more than 5 points possible, but we will actually only consider up to 5 points. We'll want you to include bios for the staff members that you include here. So nothing huge, no resumes. We just want like a paragraph or 2 that says their year's experience in the field, what they do, maybe a major achievement or 2 that's, related to the work here. You can also include consultants as the staff in this section if you can provide a signed contract. And in certain situations, board members. Again, those details will be in the application. We'll be looking at staff turnover as well. This is another plus pass-fail score. We'll just want to make sure that there hasn't been any significant turnover, there hasn't been a loss of leadership. You can also get points if you've grown as a company and for promoting staff internally. Those promotions do need to come with an increase in salary, not just a change of title. We will also consider partnership experience. You can get 2 points for having a quality partnership and an additional point for having more than 1. We'll ask in the application about the benefits of any partnerships and will require at least an MOU as evidence. If you received the pre-development and capacity building grant last year, so that's PDCB, and your award was for capacity or for pre-development on the project that you were submitting, you can get an additional point. This section also allows for a gap mitigation narrative and a guarantee, though here the guarantee will only be worth 2 points. One note, there's only 1 space in the application for the gap mitigation narrative. If you are hoping to get all 4 possible gap mitigation points, you'll need to make sure that your narrative clearly addresses 4 different criteria or issues. That'll be 2 in capacity and 2 in experience.
Jessica,
Could
could you roll
down,
up?
sorry.
Yep, there we go. Thank you.
Thanks. And are there any questions about this experience section? All right. I'm going to take that I'm really good at writing and explaining things. Okay. So the equity and community engagement, this is going to basically look at how you include the community and your home buyers across the lifetime of the project. You may qualify as RESC, that's the CE committed to equities part, if you score at least 19 points in this category. So the first thing that you're going to want to do when considering this section is identify a target community. The application, if you've looked, specifies racial and ethnic demographics, but there's also space to define your own community. We're looking for specifically communities that are underrepresented as homeowners, but we'd look for responses like farm workers, veterans, seniors, formerly homeless individuals, LGBT, something like that. In the past, we've received a lot of descriptions, including low-income households as a target community. This whole program is only available for low-income households, so we're hoping to see something more specific than that as you talk about the households that you serve. So the first criteria is organizational equity, diversity, and inclusion. This is another plus scoring criteria, so you'll get points if your staff and or board are representative of your community. We'll also ask you to give an example of a DEI policy that you've implemented and how you've evaluated the effectiveness of that policy. The next criteria focuses on those target communities I mentioned. This one's a little confusing because it contains both plus scoring and traditional rubric. So really, it's a big narrative question. There are 2 points that you get or you don't. If you identify your community and you can explain that community's need, there is your first and second plus right here. Then you have the rubric. This section actually isn't even part of the same narrative. It'll come from elsewhere in the application, and you can get up to 2 points for serving that identified community, depending on the portion of households served for your organization. There is one additional plus point, which will come from another totally different question if you'll set aside 20% or more of this project for buyers under 60% AMI. Let's scroll down. The next criteria is focused on outreach. It's another plus scoring criteria that will be focused on narratives. We'll want you to tell us about your outreach strategy, and we'll give you points if you have clear methods and steps, and if those methods are culturally responsive. You can get extra points if you go above and beyond. In general, in the scoring criteria, going above and beyond would typically be something that would incur like a noticeable increase in time or cost. So translations to your marketing materials wouldn't count as, exceeding those expectations, but hiring a culturally specific outreach organization or like doing a whole market study, that definitely would. The last part is a separate question in the applications, and we'll want you to describe a buyer selection process that complies with fair housing laws. Community-centered design will look at how you engage the community early in your development and how their feedback influenced your project. This one will be another narrative, and you'll be scored simply by being able to describe instances of engagement and give quality examples of how that feedback was incorporated. You can also get a point if you paid your community members for their time. Let's see. So buyer education and support is another one of those mixed criteria, and we'll look at the support that you give your home buyers. The rubric style scoring will evaluate the general support you provide with 1 point for typical home buyer education and 2 points for having a more robust support model. You can get additional points if you can show that your support is culturally responsive and for explaining how you educate buyers on the shared equity model. The last criteria for this category is regarding MWESB. This will be worth 2 points, and we'll simply look at your description of marketing and outreach to hire MWESB contractors. I do want to point out one new thing that will happen for this NOFA moving forward to support our commitment to equity and to make sure that we don't have any applicants who are using these narratives to just tell us what we want to hear. We will be making like a checklist or goals related to equity based on your application and individualized for you. And as you work through your project, you'll need to tell us how you are achieving those goals in your performance reports. Basically to follow through, or basically just to show that you're following through on what you told us you would. This is especially important because scoring 19 points in this category will make you eligible for the rest category. Applicants who don't actually perform the equity-related tasks that qualified them for that category would be considered non-compliant and could even have to return funds. So I did see one question in the chat for the recording. This says, on the 20% set aside for buyers down payment assistance priorities, preference for, oh, it just scrolled on me, sorry. On the 20% set aside for buyers under 60% AMI, how are you assessing that? By price point, down payment assistance priorities, preference for actual folks under 60% AMI, or all of the above? So the quick answer is that in your application, we would definitely want you to, what I would look for is for like a price point that those houses would be set aside in your pro forma and that price point would exist. So the understanding that those houses would sell for less probably. And then by the end of the application, do we get income information for our income verification? I guess I'm not totally positive on what we get on the closing side.
We do get income verification of the homeowners.
Okay, yeah, then that's what we would look for, is to make sure that those income verifications at the end meet those requirements, just to make sure that it's in compliance. Are there any other questions on this equity section?
Can I throw out, this is Joe at Habitat in Portland. Can I throw out a quick clarifying question on that last point?
Yeah, of course.
Income, homeowner income is collected at the time of application for the unit or at the time of closing on the unit when they purchase?
It will be at the time of closing when we collect the actual income information. So at application, I would just want your pro forma to reflect that you're expecting a lower sales price on those units.
Okay, I'm sorry. When I say application, I mean when the home buyer like submits their information for purchasing the home with their application. Like they usually indicate income at that time, and I feel like my understanding, and again, I'm new at this, is my first rodeo. So, but I feel like I've heard that that's when income is collected, as opposed to like, because they might be applying for a home like, you know, many months before they actually like close on that home, right?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for clarifying. I just got some clarification that we accept income certification up to 1 year prior to the home sale.
Got it. Okay.
If that answers your question, Joe.
It sure does. Thank you.
Okay, good. Any other questions?
This is Sarah at Habitat Portland. I just wanted to ask whether we could identify multiple target communities, because especially like if you're building a larger development, you don't want to end up with like a highly segregated development where you know, you've identified like a very specific community, and then you like, you know, we usually are aiming for 80% BIPOC households, but BIPOC households from a variety of backgrounds. Does that jive with what you're envisioning?
Yeah, no, that's great. Our application, I'll show you a little later, but the application has existing space for all of the BIPOC races and ethnicities that are available in the census. And then there should be space for, I think, 3 additional target communities for whoever you're wanting to address. So you don't
And
have
you
to pick
could-
just one.
You could list lots. Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
of course. Anyone else before I move on? All right, good questions though. I appreciate all of them. Okay, so let's move on to the financial viability criteria. This will mostly evaluate if the project is financially feasible. The first category is the evaluation of your pro forma sources and uses. All of these will be in the application, aside from the additional documentation that's listed here in this section here. We'll evaluate what you submit, and you can see here there's both plus and rubric scoring. So you'll get credit if your pro forma is good, basically. And if you can back up your estimated costs with something like a construction estimate. We'll want your financing sources to be committed, so 2 points if they're all committed, or 1 if at least 85% of your funding is committed. You'll need all financing committed by closing if you're awarded funds, though. You'll also get a point if LIFT accounts for less than 50% of your project funding. Considering LIFT's constraints to the land value, I am guessing that all of you would get that point. We'll want to make sure that you're considering cost effectiveness. We'll do this by comparing your costs to RS means data. I know we've had issues with that in the past. We expect that to still be the case. So we've reduced the weight of this category. Unfortunately, RS means still seems to be the best available data for now. But also to help offset that, in addition, we've provided you narrative space to explain cost containment measures and receive another point just for your narrative. The last criteria in this one is market volatility planning. You'll get a point for including at least 3% escalation in your pro forma, and then the rest will be based on a narrative where you can describe your planning. We'll want to see more than just those line items on your pro forma for your planning there. And are there any questions on this category? All right. All right, so then on to project details. This is the one with that's more of a menu with a lot of options. So the first scoring criteria will be based on your project description. We'll ask you to describe your project, but we want more than just something like 10 3-bed, 2-bath homes. We want you to tell us, we do want you to tell us that, but we also want to know why that's meaningful. Why are you building what you are? What impact does it have? We want to hear cool stuff about your project, basically. The next criteria is the site review checklist. This is a document that you'll receive in your Procorum Work Center. It's long and comprehensive and makes sure that you did all of your pre-site evaluation. This is just a completion point, and as long as there are no concerns on our end, it would be worth 3 points on its own. Access to amenities, we'll look at how close you are to things like grocery, parks, medical, etc. Details on this and the different sites are included in this checklist, but essentially you'd get 1 point for each amenity within 1/2 mile, or 1/2 point for each amenity within 1 mile. And then those distances are doubled for rural areas. Service to the community is looking into whether you are providing just housing or if there's something extra in your development, like a park or retail or a community garden or something like that. You'll get 1 point if that service is just for your home buyers, or 2 if that service is available to the community at large. Geographic target areas. Let's see. Okay. Geographic target areas is just to see if you're building in partnership with targets that your locality is focusing on. There are official things like TIF districts, reinvestment strategy areas, opportunity areas. We will accept those, but we'll also accept something less official as long as you can provide proof that that's actually a target area, like a newspaper article or a letter or something like that. Basically, if your locality says, we want to develop this neighborhood or we want to expand in this direction, we can give you credit for that. On the same note, we, meaning the state, want to develop rurally. So if you're a rural development, you'll automatically get those points. We also want to look at innovation, efficiency, and replicability. In the past, these were different scoring categories. We've kind of lumped them together this year. We'll want you to tell us basically any cool, innovative things that you're doing in this project, and we want you to give us evidence that those things are actually cool and innovative. If you're doing something major, think like modular housing, tiny homes, implementing this new expensive material, then you can get 3 points. Something smaller but innovative, even if it's very small and only new and innovative to you, like implementing a new innovative process management tool, or changing the way that you store materials, that'll still get you 2 points. And then both of those scores are assuming that you actually have supporting evidence. You can get points without that supporting evidence. It'll just be less. And then the last criteria is additional site specifics. This is going to include things like energy efficiency, accessibility, and some other things. All of those questions are in the application and they are all automated on scoring. So you just have to answer questions and it'll put the score in for you. And are there any questions about project details? Okay. I appreciate fewer questions. The fewer questions there are, the earlier that we will get out of this meeting. That's not me encouraging you to not ask questions if you have them. Okay. So then the last category is stewardship experience. Technically, we don't actually look at your experience. We instead focus this section on making sure that your CLT or condo structure is actually established. So the first criteria is going to be your ground lease. We'd like the final version of that, but we will accept a template or a draft. Scoring will be related to if you've used a standard template and if your attorney has reviewed and approved your ground lease. We want to make sure that you've done the research on actually selling your home. So there are 3 descriptions here because this is looking at 3 different things. First, have you developed an acceptable resale formula? And how does that resale formula fit your goals as an organization? Second, how did you come up with your sales price? And then third, have you identified mortgage products that will work with your model? We don't evaluate your model ourselves. We just want to make sure that you've actually thought through your model and your processes. And then the last scoring criteria is going over your documentation and your processes. We'll give you a point if you have and can explain your processes in a narrative form, and 1 point if you have sufficient systems or software to manage your portfolio. And are there any questions on, oh, I see one in chat. Yeah, Jackie, a recorded ground lease is good. And then there's a narrative question in the application that asks how you established your ground lease or what the process was. So if you can just talk through what that looks like, that should be sufficient. And for the recording, that question was, to show this, do you simply want the recorded ground lease?
I've got a question about this is Adam Brakes in Brookings, Oregon, emerging developer. Question about whether or not in a subdivision you can create a CLT just for the individual fee simple lots. So when you have public streets, but has anybody been successful at putting 5 or 6 lots together in a newly developed subdivision and just have those lots fall under the community land trust?
Yeah, that's certainly possible. You can absolutely put or bring scattered sites, individual sites on public streets, infill. You can absolutely bring those into a community land trust. And specifically, if you're interested in learning more, I'm happy to discuss more with you offline. If you'd like to reach out by email. Yeah.
I've got a slew of questions I could spare the group on, so maybe I'll do that.
Yeah,
All
happy
right,
to schedule a meeting with you on that.
Okay.
And just for the recording and for everybody, since this NOFA isn't competitive, we can absolutely offer additional advice that we haven't been able to in the past. So if you're interested and have a lot of questions, I am happy to sit down with you and talk through any processes. And I'll have a slide later that kind of says the best way to reach out to me, and I'll be updating the website later to have a link to schedule meetings with me. So you can just click that link and schedule stuff without having a bunch of back and forth. Great. Are there any other questions on the stewardship experience section? Any other questions about the scoring criteria as a whole before I move on to the application? All right. Give me 1 second and I'll get this all switched over. Can you see the application or do I need to do the swap again?
Swap it again.
Okay.
We can see it now. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so this is the application workbook, and I'm going to apologize, I guess not apologize, but just let you know or warn you that the rest of this presentation is going to be kind of freestyling it. So we'll just work through these pages, kind of like a walkthrough. So your workbook, there's a sample of the workbook posted online, but when you get access to your Procorum Work Center after you submit your pre-application, there will be a blank application workbook in your Procorum Work Center. And that is the one that you should use. There's a couple really minor changes. I'll go ahead and update the one on the website again, but if there are ever any more changes, that'll just be into the work center that you go, and that'll make sure that you don't have any old versions. And Carl, I see you've raised your hand.
Yep, thanks, Jessica. I appreciate it. Just before you launch into this thing, I've been doing these for the rental side of the house, and the last version for, I think it was the 9%, had multiple errors in the workbook. So I'm curious if you've checked the formulas fairly thoroughly, and what would happen if we discover errors as we're filling out errors in the workbook as we're filling it out.
Yeah, we have done a handful of sample entries and checked the formulas as we went, but I also checked the scoring criteria several times before posting it and have already found a couple of typos. So it's possible that you might find errors, and yeah, just send me an email and let me know if you find one, and we can make changes as we need to.
Thank you. Great.
Of course. All right. So after you get into Procorum and you open up that existing document for yourself, this is going to be the page that it falls on. These are your instructions page. I won't go through a lot of it, but I think this little section here talking about the color coding in the applications is going to be really important. This is also at the top of each individual page. So you'll see these like brownish entries are things that you don't have to type in. The light blue entries are the places that you should be typing in yourself. These dark blue entries are going to be drop-down menus. And then the gray entries are places that, again, you won't want to type in them because those are formulas. To navigate the Excel workbook, hopefully you're all familiar with Excel. If you're not, everything's going to be in these tabs across the bottom of the page. We've organized this into what we hope makes sense. So we've got a project information tab, development team, schedule, your financial information, sources and uses. And then everything after this is going to be related to scoring criteria and related to your scores. We have some advice on narrative questions. We've brought the narrative questions back into Excel instead of in like a separate survey somewhere else. I know long essay questions in Excel can be finicky and difficult. So these should help make that easier, but ultimately we recommend that you type those responses in like a Word document so that you can get your word count, your typo checking, things like that, and then just copy and paste them back over. And let's see. So the first tab is going to be your project information tab. We're going to look for very basic information like your project name, how many units are in your development, how much funding we are, or how much funding you're going to be requesting for us. We included a space for lift and lift supplemental, which is the two offerings that we have. There's just a handful of other information that we're looking for here. So project categories, which will include, you know, geography, project type, ownership model, if you're in a wildfire disaster area, some formulas to fill in your MWESV region. We have space to enter your site information, and there's space for 5 different sites. We are encouraging, you know, single site development rather than scattered site development, but scattered site development is still permitted, up to 5 sites here. If you have more than 5 sites, let's talk offline before before submitting an application and figuring that out. We have a lot of links that'll help you fill in some of this information if you don't have it. So like, what's your latitude and longitude? Are you considered rural or urban? And, you know, what's your legislative district numbers? We have just some more questions about your site here. Questions about the buildings that you're going to include at the site. And down here, we've got some accessibility information to just type in, and then your target population summary. In the last application, this section asked for numbers. You know, how many family and workforce housing units do you have? We were not getting great consistent answers here. And considering our focus on this target community and the equity scoring criteria, we're instead just going to ask you for yes or no on these questions. So are you targeting family and workforce housing? Are you targeting agricultural workers? And then space for 3 other target communities down here. I'm not actually sure how much detail I should go into on these pages, so let me know if you need more detail or if I'm like really going too detailed into this. But also, are there any questions on this page? Okay. So I know this was the most important to most people to walk through and understand. So I want to make sure that I'm getting what everyone needs here. The second tab is going to focus on your development team. It should be pretty simple, just information on your, you know, who's the applicant, if there's a co-applicant or co-developer, what's their information, who owns the project, do you have any consultants that we should be reaching out to or including in our contact information, who is our primary contact goes here, and then we collect a little bit of additional information on your contractor, architect, attorney, title company, escrow officer. I think this is also for your escrow officer here. We ask for some basic nonprofit information. And down here, if you have any direct or indirect financial or other identity or interest members, we'll just want you to talk about that down here. Is that good? Does anyone need any more details on this page?
Sorry, I was
That's
looking for
okay.
the hand to raise. I'll just ask. I noticed with the required documentation that it looks like you're not requiring as like you require the financial statements from the last 2 years, but I didn't see things like the IRS letter, things like that. Do you need that stuff?
The IRS letter, like your 501c3 letter.
Correct. Yeah.
I think that is just kind of listed under. You know, we didn't call that out specifically, but I would just say consider that part of your organizational documents.
Oh, I'm seeing it now. Okay. Okay, got it.
Yeah, and I mean, if the document isn't in this list and you don't include it and we end up needing it, we'll just reach out to you. We won't, you know, delay your award or push you back in line if we didn't actually tell you we needed that document. So don't worry about that. But yes, do please submit that. But in that case, if we do need it, we'll just let you know. All right, so jumping into development schedule, this is really quick. This is all this page is. Also, I just realized, can you all read this? Do I need to zoom in? I realize it's zoomed pretty far out.
You could make it bigger.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Susie. So basically, this is just us asking what your development schedule is looking like, or what you know, how fast you plan to build everything. You'll want to make sure that this document schedule aligns with the required deadlines. So that's 6 months to close, 12 months to start vertical construction, 36 months to complete CO, and 42 months to have the last sale. So we're going to be checking this development schedule to make sure that your project is timely to our requirements. The sources and financial assumptions, let's see. This is going to be kind of that first document in your pro forma. So where is your funding for the development coming from? We've got this list of sources here. Pay attention to these red boxes. This is kind of where we're putting tips for your application, how to fill things out. We're going to want you to enter all of your committed sources here in this committed sources section. This is where we're going to want to see either 85% or 100% of your non-OHCS funding is going to, you know, we're going to want that in this section. But if you have any grants, or I guess, for example, a grant that you've applied for, you're pretty sure you're going to get it, but it's not actually been committed, we'll want to drop that here. And then also we have the space for lift and lift supplemental funds. We're going to want you to break out those funding sources by year 1, 2, and 3, and tell us what type. Is it going to be a loan? Is it going to be cash? And then all the details of that source, essentially. We will want all of your sources and uses to balance. That'll be part of the scoring criteria as well. And then the second section here, looking at unit characteristics, this is where we'll want to break out all your different units by bedroom size, square footage, etc. If you're having that 60% set aside on the scoring criteria, or if you have 20% set aside for 60% AMI or below, this is where we'll want to see that kind of called out expectation that the sales price for those will be a little bit lower. Carl, I see you have another question.
Yep, 2 questions, so there's related. In the section above, if we own land outright, do you consider that a source?
You know, if you already own the land, Susie Elizabeth, do you know if last year, if they already owned the land, did we have them put a source in it, or did we just have them leave out the cost of land in their pro forma?
So if there's, I would say add it, because the purchase price is part of the project costs. And even if it was donated, you would add the value, and that would be a source of funds.
Great, thank you for that.
Okay.
And then, does the way you're structured the pro forma here, is there sources for construction and permanent financing, just construction, just permanent? How is that structured?
What would permanent financing be used for? Are you thinking like a revolving loan? Or?
No, it's essentially the takeout financing, right? So we'll have construction sources, and then we have takeout sources for that is essentially the mortgages. but there could be other permanent sources that are permanent grants, for example.
Okay, so the mortgages specifically, we would want to see that on the sales revenue here. So whatever you sold your home for, that would be automatically calculated. So as you put in your expected sales prices here, that should bring it in and fill out your sales revenue and proceeds.
Okay.
So that would be the case for the mortgages. Any other financing, I would just list here as needed.
Quick follow-up to that. We've talked about this a lot. Down payment assistance. How do you want us to show that, or do you not want us to show that at all?
So we don't need you to show down payment assistance. Whatever you have in the expected sales price here, that's what we expect you to earn from the sale. Even if you're providing your own down payment assistance from like a different grant, I guess in that case, we would want you to maybe include that in these sources. But say, for example, you were getting OHCS down payment assistance, or your applicants were getting that. So if you were selling it for if you were selling the home for 200,000 and then you were cutting that by, I don't know, 20,000 is the down payment assistance they got, we would still want to see the 200,000. We wouldn't want to see 180 listed here.
And just to follow up on that, because these homes will be closing on a time period where, like, for example, Hope DPA is not out yet, so no one has an award. If you had a history of award, do you want to put that in highly likely sources? Because no one will actually have state DPA that will be able to show as committed.
Yeah, so we wouldn't really want you to include your DPA sources from external. We can just assume that your home buyers would either need that DPA or wouldn't need the DPA to reach the sales price.
So don't include it.
Right. There are later narratives that ask about the services you provide. So if you if you offer help in getting DPA, you can talk about that there as kind of your all-around service providing.
Thanks,
But,
Jessica.
yeah, sure. Yeah, I don't think we need that breakout of where you're getting DPA and if that DPA is committed. So I wouldn't worry about that.
I have a related question, which is, so like the home sales price is we consider that to be the base price, which is what the affordability or the resale calculation is based off of. So we want, like, every 3-bedroom home in a particular development to be resold down the road with the same calculation. But we're actually selling the homes on a sliding scale to tailor, we're factoring in the mortgage and the family's income, and then creating a sliding scale price based on what affordable monthly mortgage payment will work out to be. So like what we bring in from our mortgages is a real moving target depending on what the actual incomes of the households are and what interest rates are. And then B, the sales price, basically we kind of, the difference between what the family can afford and our affordable base price is we make that difference with a 0% forgivable mortgage. And that's kind of what we call it, but it's really just a fiction. So it's hard to capture that in a spreadsheet. Do you have any suggestions?
So that is common among especially among Habitat affiliates, based on what I've been scrolling through old applications. What you have been doing in the past, I guess, using that base price to balance your pro forma, that should be fine. We haven't really dug in that detailed into the variance on sales, and anytime that we are, talking about or qualifying, especially Habitat pro formas, is that, the Habitat model has the sliding scale. They provide their own mortgages. Most discussions on Habitat pro formas are inclusive of that expectation that there's going to be a sliding scale. So what you've been doing in the past will still be fine for this application.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. Any other questions on the sources and uses? All right, this is a good conversation, good questions. Or I guess that was just sources. So moving on to the uses section. This shouldn't look very different from the last applications. We've broken out by category or, phase of development, different potential uses or, construction costs. So we've got acquisition and site work, and then space for you to type in and enter your own. If there's anything additional, we've got pre-development and soft costs, hard and construction costs, etc., everything there. So we ask that you have your total construction here and then your expected spend down over the 3-year period. We have more tips over on the right looking for these little red call out boxes. The only major difference from last year, if you're, refilling these or looking into it, is that instead of bundling your contingencies in with their specific category, we've just pulled out a separate contingencies section. We have also added a formula that'll calculate your maximum allowable based on what's written in the NOFA. So as you fill everything in, this max cost will update until everything is filled in completely. And then if you have any concerns or questions, since this is new or kind of first attempt at adding this formula, if you have any concerns about what number actually shows up for you, you can reach out and I'm happy to talk through it. And if there's anything wrong with it, get it fixed. We've also filled in some of the expected OHCS costs. So we've got the application charge and the recipient charge based on the information that you fill in other spaces. And then we'll also automatically calculate your anticipated reservation charge. The other item, we have just kind of roughly filled in $1,500 in DOJ charges. This is kind of a best guess. If you've worked with us before, you know that these charges can vary wildly depending upon the project. So this is kind of our best guess for something that is very simple, uses the templates and gets approved and doesn't, have a lot of back and forth or any issues. So if you are anticipating having any issues, you can feel free to update this number to what it might be. Otherwise, everything else should update. All of this information should fill in as you fill out your sources and uses. And we have added one other section here on the contractor percentages. We've got the total potential GC or general contractor overhead, profit and general conditions, and what the percentage of the construction total is here. I did notice when we were asking what other things would cover, one of the questions was how a contractor can make a profit. That is where that comes in is, the general contractor would include their profit in their application and their, or in their estimates, and their anticipated profit should be included in your pro forma. For the developer is allowed up to 10%. I double check that, but up to a 10% developer's fee, and that can be included in your pro forma as well. Let's see. I see a couple of questions. Oh, the recommend, okay. Yeah, the scoring criteria is 3%, so you'll get your point for a 3% escalation rate. And I'm sorry, for the recording, the question is, what's the recommended escalation rate to use? And you'll get credit for that escalation if it's 3%. The NOFA document should actually state what the allowable rate is, the allowable maximum rate. But yeah, of course. Are there any other questions on this
Yep.
uses page?
Yeah,
Oh,
just
sorry, Clem.
yeah, no problem. So columns G, H, and I have years in them. So are you asking here to have the construction cash flow? So you have the budget in column C, and then construction cash flow over the build out in columns G, H, and I. Is that what I'm taking that to mean?
Yeah, exactly. So the total cost will be D, and then you'll want your cash flow to be in GH and I.
Yeah, so we'll have a pretty good, fairly accurate column D. I'm fairly sure of it. Very sure of it. The columns G, H, and I will be, are kind of our best guess about kind of when that spend down is going to be. That's okay.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions on this page? Okay. All right, so all the other pages from this point forward are going to look into the scoring criteria. So these will all be new to everybody, even those of you who have filled out this application since the inception of LIFT. The development capacity and development experience scoring criteria are lumped into just one because they kind of share a couple of fields. So we've got space for your current project pipeline. Hopefully that is enough spaces. Please reach out to me if it's not, and I can update your spreadsheet for you and give you more space. It should be pretty basic asks. We just want up to, kind of the details of what's going on. And there's a drop down for stage of construction, just so that we can kind of understand where each one is in your pipeline without, getting into too much detail. Same with development project history. We do not need to add more lines if you have more history than this in your last 10 years. Just kind of put the ones that are most related to your project, essentially. Let's see. Staff details, here's where you can find those details I mentioned on who counts as staff. And just where you can enter all of your staff details. Lots of little questions that will respond very directly to the question. So here there's the scoring criteria on staff turnover. This is how many paid staff positions did you have at the start of last year, and how many positions do you have today? That's how we know if you've had, growth and turnover in leadership roles. You'll find that most of these are very directly related to each of the different scoring criteria. And then we'll use that to do those scores. Narrative questions. This is what most of them will look like. Just a little brown question and then a big blue box. So you can type directly in here if you want to. We have, kind of the length that we want your question to be, or we want your response to be. And then we have the space. So typing in the space is fine. It works okay. It's not the best and it's difficult. So we recommend typing into Word and copying and pasting it. But you might encounter this error where I'm just going to copy a paragraph from the script that I was reading for the scoring criteria. if you just click into this box and you hit Control V to try to paste it, you might get this error. Can you guys see this error? Okay. Yeah, you might get that. And then it'll ask if you want to paste anyway. And if you say okay, it'll still tell you you can't do it because we merged these cells. So the way that you can get past that is just double click in this cell, then you can delete stuff and paste, and there's no problem there. So that's my recommendation on these complicated Excel things. The way I like to think of it is if you click once, you're pasting into the spreadsheet. So like it's just trying to layer it on top of all of these existing boxes and all the different cells. And then if you double click into it, then you're actually pasting into this box. So that's the way I think about it. That helps me kind of understand how it works. Long entry point for your gap mitigation narrative. And then we have broken out the scoring criteria down here. Something new that we're going to ask you all to do is self-score yourself. So we have space here for you to type in the score that you think you would get based on your answer. If you did not attend the general information session, please be honest. What we're going to do here is first, this will help you make sure that you're submitting a complete application that meets all of the requirements. And then as we score this, we will also use it as kind of a double check, so that if we, for example, give you 1 point and you gave yourself 4 points, then we'll be like, well, we need to double check this and make sure that, something's not missing if, there's this really clear difference in expectations, essentially. And then if that is the case and our expectations didn't align and you still didn't meet our criteria, that'll be the place that we can reach out to you and give you feedback so that you can submit again and actually meet that, or, actually possibly get the award. And just one more piece of advice on these scoring criteria. Each of these boxes is going to align with each of the different scoring criteria in the rubric. So there was the category, then there was the list of criteria in the summary document. And then when we go into the detailed information, that's where it has the breakout into all of the different specific ways that we would score that. This is that breakout. So if it's going to be a plus, or if they're one of the plus items, that's going to be its own little line. And then if it's one of the rubrics, even though that's, maybe 3 or 4 lines in the scoring criteria document, you'll see 1 line for that one here. Any questions on the capacity and experience section? Okay. So I'll run through the rest of these really quickly so that there's still time for Procorum, even though Procorum wasn't really considered super high up. Equity engagement. So this is what I mentioned during the scoring criteria section. So we've got the breakout of the racial and ethnic groups here, and then space for you to type your own target populations. So we will want to look at your the different sites of your location. If you only have 1 site, you only need to fill out this 1 line. And then we'll want to look at your board composition, your staff composition, and your households served. If you have a target population that is not racially or ethnically based and you fill it in yourself, you'll need to kind of figure out what that looks like in the county side. So say, for example, you're serving seniors. Well, what percentage of seniors are in your county? The rest of these will pull in automatically based on the county of your site. So back here in project information, if we say your site 1 is in Umatilla County, and we pop back over here to equity and engagement, you will see that this section has already automatically filled in. Jackie, I see your hand raised.
Just a question on that. If there's a chance that we're overachieving or, underachieving on what the county's demographic is. So how would you like us to put that in? Like, for example, let's use Umatilla. Like, let's say the last project you did in Umatilla, there was 30% Black homeowners. How would we show that to you?
You mean on like a specific project rather than your portfolio as a whole? Is that what you're asking?
Well, I guess I'm likely misunderstanding this, but it looks like when the county is going to define the racial demographics, but that is not always true, right? Like, so how are we able to demonstrate that we performed higher or lower than that? Or do you not want to, does that not matter?
So we do have this, tell me if I'm misunderstanding your question. So we do have this household served line. So that is where we would want you to put in who you were serving. So if you're overachieving or underachieving, if say, we have 28% Hispanic or Latino or Latina in Umatilla County, and 60% of the households you serve are Hispanic or Latino or Latina. This is where we would want you to just type that in.
Okay, and so as a follow-up though, because we haven't selected people before we've applied, you just want us to base it on historical
Yes.
homeowners.
Yeah, this is going to be like up to application. Who have you been serving? Or did I put a specific year? Not here. Somewhere in the scoring criteria, it might say how many years back we want to look.
Okay,
It might be, for the past 3 years or the past 5 years. If we don't say that, that's kind of what I would say, like the past 3 years or the past 5 years would be a good example here.
okay, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Sorry for misunderstanding initially. Let's see. So we have your breakdown of AMI. This is going to be the other piece of evidence we need if you're serving less than 60% AMI households. We have space here for 80 to 120 and market rate individuals. Those are not covered by LIFT. These are just available if someone is doing a mixed income development that includes that, even though LIFT itself won't fund those units. More space for more narrative questions, lots and lots of space for narrative questions, and then another breakdown of scoring criteria here. Any other questions on equity and engagement? Okay. So I guess I won't go into too much detail on these. A lot of these are fine. Most of them are mostly narrative questions. You'll notice on some of the self-scoring, you've got formulas that'll self-score for you so that you don't actually have to do a whole lot of consideration. And then we'll just double check that that self-score worked correctly. Project details, which is that big menu. If you scroll down, you'll find the environmental and climate resilience section, the accessibility section. This is going to be those additional project details. Again, these will all automatically self-score. So, if I said, yes, this will be constructed to certification standards greater than Oregon Building Code, we'll have our 2 points. It'll show you make 2 points here. And if you scroll down to your self-scoring criteria, your 2 points will show up here as well. And then stewardship experience is just more narrative questions. And then the final page here is the document checklist. We list all of the documents that you need to submit several times in many different places. So we've got the scoring criteria. We have inside your scoring, each scoring place here, we tell you which attachments you need. And then in the document checklist, we just tell you again, all of the different documents that you'll need to submit. Are there any other questions about the application? Hopefully I covered everything, even though I kind of rushed through these last sections. Okay, good. And then just the last piece, this should not take very long at all. Let me set up this share for the Procorum Work Center. Can you all see this the new
Yes.
screen? Okay, thanks, Susie. So this is your Procorum Work Center. After you fill out your application, I will get you set up in this and you'll receive an invite in your email to join. If you've never used Procorum before, it's pretty simple. It's mostly just a document sharing platform. When you click in to your work center that you get invited to, this is going to be the first page that you land on probably, that shows your files. I want to point out just one thing on this page. We've got right here is my example OHCS homes, and then I have this number in parentheses 9999. Yours will have a different number, and that number will correlate to your grant number. You'll want to use that number in a couple of places, but the reason that it's important at application is that our finance department is helping us move to an online payment platform so that you don't have to submit checks for your application charge. You'll be able to do that payment online. And one of the things that you will need to include is this number. So just in the future, when that happens, we'll send out notice and we'll give you instructions on how to do that. But this number here is going to be one of the numbers that'll be required in that payment system. Navigating the work center should be super easy. In the files, we have this application folder. If you click in, there's a space here for announcements that should be empty. Hopefully, most of the time I don't have a lot of announcements to send. Down at the bottom, we've got blank forms. These are for you to download. If you click in, that's where you will find several items. Okay. That is where you will find your site review checklist, other blank documents that you'll need to submit, and the blank application workbook. You can navigate back up here. I like to use this to just kind of go backwards as needed. Back in your application section, this application submission document or this folder, once you click in here, this is where we'll want you to upload everything. That should be super simple. You just click upload files and you can just drag and drop all of the files into this space here and scroll down and click upload. I know some people get kind of caught up on the status typing in descriptions and comments. You can leave all of that blank. We don't really need it. So just drag and drop everything here. The other important place to look is in this navigation panel on the left, there's this tasks button. We've set up just some really simple upload your documents tasks. So did you upload all of the general documents? And this will correlate with the sections on the documents page in the application. So we have a section for general documents, a section for experience and capacity documents. So this is just check this off. If you click into it, you can see just another list of the documents. This should be the exact same as in the application workbook. And the most important thing is this submit task at the bottom. So since this is a first come first serve application, your application basically needs to be date stamped, and that's going to be your place in line for review. This button, clicking this checkbox right here, that is going to be your date stamp. So you need to make sure if you're submitting this, you absolutely, absolutely need to check this box to submit it, or we're not going to consider it submitted. And don't check this box until the application is actually complete. Otherwise, we might need to cancel it and then make you resubmit, which will push your place in line back a little bit. And then this is just for us, the application review, that's going to be OHCS's kind of tag that we need to pass it through our department. Any questions on Procorum? I hope that's simple enough. I know eventually you're going to have to do more, and Susie and Elizabeth will have much longer and larger walkthroughs to talk you through what they need. But for our application purposes, that's really everything you need to do in Procorum. And Jackie.
Not a procurement question, if you don't mind, an application workbook question that I missed.
Oh, sure.
On the attachments, under zoning, historically OHCS has provided a form, and here it says just prove that the zoning is accurate. Can we use that old form, or what do you want us to use?
Yeah, that was expecting the old form.
Okay, so we can use
Let
the
me
old
see
form.
if it's in here. Yeah, so I do want you to use that same old form for the zoning. I will make sure that that is included in the Procorum Work Center. I'll double check if any of these are that, and if they're not, I will get that blank form uploaded to any existing work centers, and then any future work centers should expect to have that in it immediately.
Thanks so much.
This is Joe from Portland Habitat. I also had a question not related to Procorum. I put it in the chat as well. For the available funding tracker on the NOFA landing page, I noticed that there's been an update since last week, and I was just wondering if you could kind of briefly walk us through how to interpret that. Like, I'm seeing that the pre-applications pending, the total all falls under the set aside. So I guess my question is, if we know we're not qualifying for the set aside, is there going to be a separate tally for the lift funding, or not until the set aside's done?
Sure. I'm just going to the page here so that anyone on the recording and elsewhere can see this. You all can see our NOFA page on the website, right? Okay.
Yes.
So what Joe is asking about is this available funding drop down here. And yes, you will notice that all of the applications that we have received have self-identified as qualifying for the lift set aside. So what that looks like in the pre-application is we really just ask, do you qualify as any of these types of developers? And that's where we include rural, emerging, small, and committed to equity. If that box is checked, or if someone checks any of those boxes, we will immediately count them in this lift set aside section. So everybody who has submitted their application so far has checked one of those boxes. And so all of their requests have fallen into this lift set aside category. So this tally is just going to continue based on who requests the fund, or what people say when they request their funding. If we receive $40 million worth of applications and every single one of them identifies as the lift set aside, all 40 million will be tallied into that lift set aside section on the pre-applications pending. And then as we work through those and award them and identify if they are actually qualified for the set aside or not, we might swap those over into lift funding, like in this applications pending section. Like say we've scored it and reviewed it, but we're still waiting to send them as a batch to Housing Stability Council. We might preemptively kind of bump them over here to the lift funding side. The way that this will ultimately work is, you know, if you're eligible for the lift set aside and the lift set aside funding runs out, but there's still general lift funding available, you can still get the general lift funding. Joe, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. I didn't I didn't think that we did qualify for the set aside, so I'm kind of surprised to see it land in that column, but I might have checked a
I
box I
think-
wasn't supposed to or something.
I think there's a little bit of a difficulty because a lot of pre-applications were submitted before the training and no definitions are included in the actual pre-application. So one of those things just says, are you committed to equity? And I think a lot of people are just saying, yeah, of course I'm committed to equity without like relating it specifically to that scoring criteria. So that's why I added this little note. But we'll see it review space. But thank you for clarifying that, Joe.
Yeah, totally. I mentioned last week that I think this is going to be a really helpful tool for especially for the rolling deadlines. So thank you for that.
Yeah, of course. Well, I know that we are now 4 minutes over time, so I'm very glad I scheduled this for an hour and a half and not an hour. Are there any other questions before we part and start working on that NOFA? I can't tell if that is a hand raised or, oh, now it's a thumbs up emoji. Yay, okay. Thank you.
Applauding you.
Sorry,
All right.
I was trying to say like this is really like very expertly organized and I'm looking forward to working on it. So thank you for all the work you all have put into it.
Great. And thank you so much. And thanks everybody for attending and for all of the great questions. And hopefully I've been able to preemptively answer a lot of NOFA questions, but again, I'll still be available for questions throughout the entire application period. I will be updating the website with both recordings, an FAQ document, maybe a scoring tips or tricks, scoring advice. I haven't written the document yet, but it's in my head, something I want to do, and the link to schedule appointments with me. In the meantime, if you have any questions, email our ho.development@hcs.oregon.gov email address. That's the best way to contact me about the NOFA. That email is going to go directly to me. It's not going to go through a bunch of people. So you can expect to hear from me soon if you send that email. Otherwise, thank you all so much for joining us today, and good luck on working on your applications if you choose to move forward with that. And I hope you all have a great rest of your week. Oh, and thanks, Susie. She just put the email address in the chat.